Well, I'm delighted today to have with us Dietmar Schloesser, who is responsible for digital innovation within the Tuffnord group. Now, that's a pretty big title, digital innovation, in an organisation which I know is playing an increasingly important role in the global service infrastructure around industry and the wider world. So, Dietmar, perhaps first of all, thank you so much for coming. Could you tell us a little bit more about the organisation and what it is you do as responsible for digital innovation?
Yeah, good morning, John, and thank you so much for having me today. TUV NORD Group. Actually, I started a discovery of this company 2.5 years ago when I took on my role. Because in Germany, when people hear TÜV, they would normally think of cars that you have to take to a regular inspection. Then you get these nice TÜV stickers if your car is okay, and then you're allowed to to use your car for another 2 years. So that's usually what people associate with our organization. And I had to learn that it's even much more than I expected when I joined the organization. So we're actually everywhere from underneath the ground to space. So we have 6 quite different business units. We have one that is called Engineering and Natural Resources. One of our big locations is in Essen in the Ruhr area, Ruhr Valley in Germany, which is known for its coal, so mining and steel. And actually, this business unit has its roots actually 300 years ago. I was also surprised to learn that in coal, in the coal business. So they were just looking after, let's say, safety in coal mining and really also exploration, safe exploration of coal mines. And we also have a business unit, Aerospace, which tests satellite components. So actually, the guys there in that business unit were so proud when the last Mars mission took place. You might have seen that, John, in August, I think it was. So there were also some components in this Mars vehicle. From Alta Technologies, that's the name of the business unit, and then of course we have our let's say traditional car inspection. We also have a huge business unit, Industrial Services, but we also have a business unit for training. So that was also something that I was not fully aware of when I joined. So and last but not least, another business unit for IT, looking after cybersecurity, highly specialized. So that was also something that I did not necessarily associate with TÜV, with the brand TÜV, before I joined.
Wow, that's a pretty wide spectrum of activity, and I guess the message that it sort of shouts out to me is this has got to be a knowledge-based organization. You need to know about a lot of different worlds, and you need people who can work across those worlds. So I guess that puts skills very much at the center of what you do as an organization, which, given the Vision Project is all about looking to the future of how skills are going to be acquired and deployed in the next 10 years, makes it a very relevant conversation to be having now. Could you tell us a little about particularly the skills of innovation and entrepreneurship, how they play out in your organization, why they're so important?
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, absolutely spot on, John. Let me probably say a few words about why innovation is so important to us, because that will lead me automatically to hopefully a good answer to your question. So basically, what we see for, let's say, 150 years, we've seen very autonomous business units. So everybody was happy in their particular area of expertise, and it's around products. So it's testing, inspection, and certification. So what people call the TIC business. But it was always about products. It was a car. It was a a boiler, or even a toy. It can be a lift, whatever. And you had the expertise centered around those individual products. So for a car, you would test the brakes, you would see whether the lights would work, whether, let's say, the electronics were okay, whether the mechanical components would work properly. But it was all about this one single product, which also meant that the people having the expertise on these individual products would not need to talk to each other. So they were focused on what they were doing, and yeah, I would almost say happily ever after. But there was actually no need for doing things together for, let's say, for decades. And I think what we're seeing now is that with digitalization, the fundamental nature of products has changed completely. So we don't have, let's say, physical products only. It's also not, I mean, you have, let's say, a digital component, but what we're living in is what I would call the phygital world. So I think physical and digital worlds have merged together and can no longer be separated. And that has dramatic implications. First of all, you have the aspect of security, of course, because of the digital nature of products these days. But what has happened is actually that these products talk to each other. Well, think about IoT, Internet of Things, and that means that we're no longer dealing with individual products, but with intelligent networked systems. And that is something completely different and is a huge challenge for us, because, I mean, how do you evaluate safety and security for such an intelligent network system? We're still finding our way to get some meaningful answers to that, and we have to. But it also means that the people that were able to work, let's say, in their isolated silos before, now have to talk to each other. Because give you an example, autonomous driving, so that would be our business unit mobility. You need a lot of sensors, sensor technology now, because it's a lot of components, not just in the car, but also smart city components that will actually make autonomous driving possible. Now, we have a lot of sensor technology expertise in the business unit engineering and natural resources, because if you're looking for natural resources a few kilometers underneath the ground level, then you cannot always be there. You need sensors. You also need sensors in space. So we have places where we have that expertise, but now we need it rather in the car, in the automotive space. And just one example that illustrates why it is so important to connect people and really tap into the expertise that we have. But we have this expertise in different areas of the company. And sometimes we have to learn where this actually is. That's the first step to find that out. So that's, I think, the big issue or the big challenge that we have, to bring this expertise together and also build new expertise. So I think what we need is, I would call it upskilling, is the big topic that we're dealing with, because, I mean, we have to get to a common understanding of these possibilities, of these technologies, how to apply them, how to make use of them, and also build some expertise in the innovation and entrepreneurship space, especially because it takes some sense of entrepreneurship to bring these different parts of the organization together in order to create something new. And I think this hopefully illustrates why it is so pivotal for us to solve this equation, to master this challenge, and why we're so interested in, for instance, the Vision project, and why it is so relevant to us.
I mean, that is fascinating, and I think it in microcosm is explaining the experience for many organizations. It is about moving knowledge around, connecting it, and refreshing it towards different targets. That, of course, for me raises a big question. Either you are a brilliant company for recruitment and you automatically have people who can do this, or you're finding ways to train and develop those people in the organization to have those skills. I'm sure it's the latter. Could you talk a bit about how?
It is indeed the latter. You are absolutely right. And I think it was like so 4 to 5 years ago, where we really had to make a decision. I think the driver at the time was, or driving this discussion, this decision was digital transformation. So I think the whole leadership of the company, and not just the leadership, became aware that we had to do something, that we have to really change, and that we have to undergo a transformation. And the question was, how are we actually going to do that? So what we did then was to say, well, we have to do it with our own people. So we cannot just hire new people having those skills. And then in the end, build another silo. Let's call it the digital silo. This would not really help for the whole group. So it was clear to us that we had to find smarter ways of, helping our own people drive this digital transformation. And that's why we founded the Digital Academy. We said that, well, we have to get people from the different organizations, from the different operational units, bring them together, equip them with knowledge, and help them to learn new methods. Just one example, design thinking, to really approach problems in a new way, so that we actually have, let's say, drivers for this, or change agents for this transformation that we want to do. So they came together for, let's say, a period of 6 weeks, full time, which is quite a commitment from business units, I have to say. And it's always a struggle, but I mean, they've seen that value. They still do that. So they send people from the operational units. Then you have a curriculum of things that they learn and that they try out. That's half of the time. And the other half of the time is actually project work. So they bring projects from the business units to that digital academy to work on those problems in the together in teams, applying this newly acquired knowledge. So trying out the new methods that they get to really get to a solution, or that they can suggest a solution. And at the end of each training round, we call it digital expert training. The digital experts, the future digital experts, have to pitch their ideas, their solutions to the whole executive. So it's like you can think of that in terms of a Shark Tank format. So something that you probably know from TV, and that is really helpful. I mean, you need something at the end of this training process that gives visibility to the digital experts, and also some sort of appreciation for what they've done. And this pitch event has really proven to be very, very helpful in that respect. And then these digital experts go back to their business units and really drive change there. Are the change agents there, work on new projects. They often even change their role within the organization. So, for instance, in one of the business units, one of the former digital experts is now the chief digital officer of this business unit. So there's also some kind of and I think there has to personal development aspect. You can do something good for your career if you go through it, and that is very important to attract people because of the visibility, because of the opportunities that you get there. We now had rounds, and it's about 90 digital experts that we have. And this has really been a very successful program. So it's really widely accepted in the company. I think they have, when you want, if you want to call it social status, so the social status within the organization of these digital experts is very high, which is important to get even more people into this program. And I think now for us, the big challenge is to scale. So, 90 people sounds much, but then with 14,000 employees, you might argue, well, it's not actually that much. I mean, I'm always impressed how much change these 90 people already drive in the organization, what they have already achieved. But we now have to find a way to involve way more people. We have to change it. We cannot have 14,000 people go through a 6-week training program, which is also not necessary. But there might be parts that we can make more easily available to everybody, and that's now I would say the second phase of the digital academy to really get this scaling right. And it follows also the evolution of an innovation project in itself. So in a way, we look at Digital Academy as a new product or a new service. So now comes the scaling phase of this, which is one stage in our innovation process. And we also we've been able to find external customers for Digital Academy as well. Of course, we had to, let's say, undergo the same kind of pain that a startup has to go through. So we had to pivot a couple of times because, our initial thinking was like, our program is so great, external customers will love it and will just take what we have on offer now. Of course, this was not the case. So we really had to change a lot, but that helped us again to get new impulses for the internal organization. So we developed now a few formats with external customers that we didn't have before, that we're now reapplying internally. So this is, I think a good way of, let's say, doing the things that you want to apply on a broader scale everywhere in the company. So really trying to set an example how this might actually work. So it's a small version of what we want to achieve as part of this, as a result of that transformation.
This is absolutely fascinating, and I really like your use of the word change agents, because in a sense, innovation is not some magical thing. It's driven through people. They make change happen. And the sort of dream of an organization, if it wants to be innovative, is to be full of change agents. The big question is how, and what you've obviously been doing is learning, going up that learning curve. Fascinating. I guess, and I like the fact that it's been growing and it's spreading through the organization, but I guess there were some quite important lessons early on, some challenges you had to get over to establish this in the culture of what might have been in the past a fairly traditional organization, which is now changing itself. Could you comment a little on the challenges in moving to this this learning culture?
Yes, I think it's. I think when you have the, I would even I personally perceive it as an honor to have this role. I really enjoy what I'm doing, so I'm very grateful for that. But if you have this role, I mean, if you're responsible for such a program, if you have to, in a way, drive this transformation, I think what I've learned is that humility is probably something that you need most, because it's really understanding that you in a central function will never have the impact that like a change agent, like a digital expert will have in their respective business unit, because people know them, people trust them, they speak the same language, they speak the same jargon, they're absolutely accepted, and some sorry for the word, smart ass from a central function will never have the same level of credibility. and that is something that you have to accept for yourself. So that means that you're probably not that visible all the time, but you have to make sure that that the change agents occupy the stage and not you. I think that's extremely important. That is something that I've learned along the way. Curiosity always helps. So I think, and that also means that you have to be curious about new things for yourself. So you can't actually try to establish a learning culture if you're not part of that, if you don't start with yourself. And that's like a general belief that I have. If you want to create change in an organization, you cannot force anybody to change. The only thing that you can do is to change your own behavior, and that way inspire others to also do that. That's the only thing that you can do as in a leadership role. I think has also something to do with humility. I think humility, but that is also something. So you have to also question your own approach on a regular basis. And I have to say, Corona was very helpful in that aspect, because it forced also my team to question the way we were working. As like things that we thought would only work on site in physical presence workshops. So you start to notice that you also have certain beliefs that you never question, or that you take for granted while you're focused on making the organization more innovative. No, you always have to look at yourself and ask the question, am I still doing the right thing? And I think the more often you get to, let's say, an answer of no, probably not, the better. So I think once you're like, yeah, we're doing the right things, no doubt about that, then you should actually worry.
Now, what I find fascinating about that is the way you're describing you and the role of your team. You're not, inverted commas, teachers or suppliers of knowledge. You're coaches, you're mentors,
Yes.
and this, I think, is one of the themes that comes through strongly in the Vision Project, that's the role that's going to change. I'm a teacher, but actually, if I reflect, my best value can be as a coach rather than as a broadcaster of knowledge. So it feels to me as if you're learning inside the organization a very different approach to how to acquire and to upgrade and continue to acquire skills, which I think is going to be important. I wonder if I could just shift for a moment then to a little bit of the future, because one of the big challenges is going to be reaching lots of people. You've said it yourself, it's a big organization, you've got to get to 14,000. And at the same time, we've seen, accelerated by COVID perhaps, the huge power that technology might play. And I don't know how far you believe in the metaverse, but the notion we might go around with goggles on and sort of experience a virtual reality. But certainly technology is going to be a key tool in all of this. Could you comment a bit about the way you see that playing out, how you use it, and how, particularly in your scaling question, how that technology card is going to get played?
Yeah, that's a very good question, and I actually would like to refer to the expression that you were using. You said technology is a tool, and that is exactly how you should look at it. Technology in itself will not do anything. Yeah, so it is neither good nor bad. It's always human beings that, in a way, determine whether technology is useful or not, and that's how I look at it. In general, I think that technology, if applied in a meaningful way, will actually play a decisive role, and that's also what we've done. Because I mean, in a way, we're trying to change the way the organization works. So, as you said, we're a rather traditional company, which is probably quite hierarchical compared to others. And now it is more like you want people to work with each other that are not part of the same hierarchy. So they're in different parts of the organization, so there's no direct, obvious connection between them. So actually what you're doing is more like a network-based approach also within your organization. And I think technology can really help you get there. And that's like social media is, I think, a good example for that, of reaching people, not trying to plan centrally what you're going to communicate, but motivate others to communicate and give them a platform to do so, which means we have an internal platform for doing that. And really making it very easy from people all around the globe to contribute, to share, to discuss, to exchange. That's very important. We're also using, the use of, in our case, it's like we're now using Microsoft Teams. That's a good example to make it very easy for people to connect and to communicate. But you also need like a platform that is more persistent, where you can see or that allows you to involve, well, in the end, the whole company. And their technology can help a lot, and has already helped. And again, there COVID-19 was quite helpful. We saw it as a huge opportunity. Given all the negative things around it, but we were trying to make the best out of this, and we used it as an opportunity to roll out new technology and really also try out new ways of working together. And in that respect, it has been very helpful. So I think this is just the beginning. I think you mentioned metaverse. We've started to use VR. And I give you a very simple example for training of inspectors. So people that do the inspections. And take boilers, for instance. You might think that boilers are all the same. Well, actually, they're not. And you have a lot of they can also be very old. You can have tons of variations, and sometimes customers have then a type of boiler that is not very common, but you have to know how to deal with that. And if you want to train people, or if you wanted to train people in the past, they would have needed to visit a specific customer that might be far away from your location, travel there just to see one particular type of boiler. Now, with VR, you can do that in a much more easy way. You make this specific type of, in this case, it's a boiler, but it can be whatever. You make that available, and people can do that training there, which already shows you this is not science fiction. This is something that you already need today. And it's now up to us to use this available technology. It's been there for years now, to use this in a meaningful and smart way. And I think that's the big challenge. I think technology is no longer a bottleneck or like a constraint. I think sometimes the constraint is rather our imagination as to how we can make smart use of this available technology.
Wow, that's lovely. Maybe I could pick up, just as we start to draw to a close, but pick up on the imagination side. The Vision Project was trying to do a bit of forecasting, a little of science fiction look into the future, and the target was 2030. So I wonder, could you just very briefly paint a picture of how you see the kind of job you're doing, the role your team are doing, how this is playing out in the year 2030? So take us in the time travel machine and just describe a little bit about that.
Well, first of all, I hope, and that would be my personal vision, that my role will no longer be needed in 2030. So that's my hope, because that would mean that I must have done a fantastic job. So making sure that it works without being there. So that's one of my fundamental beliefs. That's the ultimate success of a manager or a leader, is to make themselves redundant. So if you try to change something, I mean, yeah, you come to a point where it just works, and there's no role like that needed anymore. But apart from that, I think it's actually I really like the outcome of the vision project, because I think what the key message is it has to be centered around the people. So it's not about a particular technology. It also doesn't matter what methodology you use or what technology you use, where it takes place. I think it has to be centered around the learning experience of the students, of the people who are trying to acquire new skills and knowledge, and it will be highly individualized, and it will be much easier to integrate that learning experience into daily life. I think that's how I would summarize it, and it will give you, as the learner, a lot of flexibility in terms of how do I organize this around my needs. So that would be my vision. I hope it won't take until 2030. By the way, I think we're making very good progress there, and I think this is more in general terms. It goes way beyond the corporate world. I think this is, and then I mean, we're definitely talking about 2030 or beyond. I think we have to rethink at least parts of our educational system, and that is also what you can derive from the Vision project. I mean, if you really read it and you really think about it, that's what it actually says.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's been absolutely fascinating for me. For years, we've heard this phrase, the learning organization, and it's at one level, it's just hot air. There's no meaning to it. But I think we're beginning to understand what it might look like, and I think you've given us some great examples of how it's beginning to happen inside your organization. That's a very exciting and optimistic note to finish on. Dietmar, thank you so much for your time and for sharing those insights. And hopefully we can talk again about this as we get towards that golden future. But for now, thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. It's really been a pleasure.